Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the show today. I'm so glad that you are here. So, if you read a little bit about what I wrote, a floating petri dish is seriously what I thought a cruise ship was. I did not want to go anywhere near it. And then I had an experience at Disney's corporate headquarters talking about values and how they use their values as part of the way they literally run their business through a decision-making framework, and it all the way from the top to the janitor and anybody who works anywhere in a Disney park, cruise ship, all over the place. And I then decided I am willing to go on a cruise with Disney. So, because of their values, I decided to spend multiple thousands of dollars with this business. And I always had known that values were a very important part of leading a decision making process, also part of how we organize our cultures in business. But until that time, I didn't quite realize for myself that I'm going to choose to spend money with somebody who lives by their values. And so today I am so excited to bring Matt Dentino on. He is a podcaster. He is a consultant. He works for a company called Brain Trust, who does a lot of work around personality, which you know that I love, and creating positive cultures in the spaces that they work with. And so I am so excited for you to meet Matt.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a great intro. I appreciate it. I love being here.
I am so glad that you're here. We met, oh gosh, a few months ago and had such a great conversation. I was like, oh, we need to have this conversation on the show and the podcast because I think what you have to offer, particularly around leading and values and neuroscience, is so incredibly important to our conversation. So if you are here live, let us know you're here live in the comments. Hello, friends. And if you're catching the replay, comment there because we want to answer your questions as well. So it's a conversation between me and Matt, but also a conversation with you. So Matt, I always like to start with people giving an idea of who you are and where you came from. Like, how did you get to this place working at Brain Trust and doing what you do today?
Yeah, well, it was a long journey. And it literally, it starts at the end. You know, the old Covey saying, begin with the end in mind.
Absolutely.
Well, I actually began at the end. I retired last year and a half ago, and I refired, to use a Ziglar thing, because I love Zig Ziglar, into this space. I have, so I'll take you back just a little bit. I'm the seventh of 10 kids, come from a big Italian family. We always joke that at our house, we were so competitive that when you threw the dog a bone, you signal for a fair catch. It's the only way you got to eat at our house. And the first one up was always the best one dressed. So that's, I started in a big family. My dad was very intentional. He was one of the smartest, one of the most emotionally intelligent, before emotional intelligence was actually a thing. Men that I've ever known, and still to this day know. He was an executive at Caterpillar. He was also an entertainer. He was a director. He was a dancer. He was a singer. He was a comedian.
Jack of all trades. Talk about a powerhouse.
Yeah. And he was very intentional about all the stuff that he did. And so when I was very young, 5 years old, Dad was traveling a lot. He was out of town, out of the country a lot with Kat. And one of his core values was family. He came from a big Italian family. He and Mom specifically decided they wanted to raise a big Italian family. And so when I was about 5 years old, he decided he needed to create an activity that we could do as a family that would develop that connection, that familial connection that he so desired.
More than just throwing the dog a bone?
Yeah, more than just throwing the dog a bone, going fishing. So he created the Dancing Dentinos. Yeah, the group of, at that time it was 8 of us, and then there became 10. So it ended up that when we finally shut the thing down, because we were all going our own separate ways, there were 10 of us. But we performed all over the Midwest. Our claim to fame, we were on a show with the Osmonds one time at a fair. We were on an Italian-American picnic with Dolly Parton and Porter Wagner. But that wasn't the point. I always love to tell that story because it's fun for me, because always liked those guys. But the point that Dad made there was trying to develop familial connection. And
Yeah.
that through the rehearsals and the way that he would connect us as a team. Every Saturday morning we'd have a family rehearsal. Every Tuesday night we go to Great Aunt Jean and Aunt Rose's studio, and they would teach us old vaudeville routines, tap dances, all that good stuff. And then Saturday morning we'd come home. Mom would wake us up with a big pancake, egg, and bacon breakfast. We'd fill our stomachs, grab our tap shoes, go down to the basement, and we'd spend a couple hours working on the routines. And Dad would work it this way. He'd pair one of the older kids up with one of us younger kids, and we'd work on a section of the routine together. And I didn't realize it then. I look back on it now and I go, you know what he was doing? He was teaching us, demonstrating to us the benefit of service.
Mm-hmm.
Service to others. Because what I found out is that when I'd get a double time step or all the sounds in a double or triple time step, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, I was absolutely thrilled. Dopamine rush. So we're going to get into some neurochemistry. Dopamine rush, that's a reward chemical. You're like, oh, I got that. I got every sound. What I didn't realize then was that my older brother or sister that was working on the step with me, they got the same rush.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of implications in that as to why I'm here with Brain Trust and why I'm doing this. But it all boils down to this. My dad ran those rehearsals in such a way that I caught his three primary values in life. Family, the most important relationship you can have on this earth. Dedication to service, the most important thing you can be known for. And the service itself, the most important thing you can do with your time while you're here. And he never said anything about that. It was just the way he ran things and the way he brought us together that I caught those things from him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 60 years ago, we didn't know anything about the neurochemistry, the brain science of it. But now we know all that stuff. So now I can put actual reasons behind why that was so effective.
Yeah.
And why my 9 brothers and sisters and I have a family text that we're blowing up every day because we love each other. We're still very close.
Well, I think there's a few. I mean, first of all, I love that story. Also, coming from a large, loud Italian Catholic family, that I just see this direct parallel into how we lead and live inside organizations.
Yeah.
He designed his life around his values.
Yeah.
There were structures that he created in order to uphold the value. That was, the first thing. And then there was, what I always like to talk about is there was alignment between the implicit culture and the explicit culture. So I explicitly say, this is what's important to me. And then the actions lined up with that.
Yeah.
Because what our actions are is what's actually important to us.
Right.
And so those values of connection and service and the gift and the work that you do in the world clearly made its way in an embodied way into your life and to your 9 siblings. And then now that you carry that into the world, I think in business, we have to, when we don't have alignment between implicit and explicit culture, or we don't system and structure and operationalize our values, people leave because they sense the disconnect or the lack of support.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about that neurochemistry, because sometimes we can intuitively know, like they say this and they do something else and I want to get out of here. But why is that so important?
Yeah, great question. So I'll give you just a couple of things. You've heard the saying probably before that you can't consistently live in a manner that is not in direct line with your values. You can fake it for a while,
right?
But you can't consistently do that. And so what we're finding, Gallup does this study every year where they look at the workforce, and it's pretty consistent year to year to year to year. The last one for 2023 that came out recently still talked about the fact that 53%, I think is what the number was.
Yeah.
It fluctuates right in there, but 53% of people that leave the workforce or leave a particular job aren't leaving the company. They're leaving a manager.
Usually their direct manager.
Yes.
Almost always. There might be one up, but almost always it's their direct manager.
And it's generally because they don't have that connection and they don't have the shared value.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have the perfect in sync shared value with somebody maybe that you're working for or supervisor, but you certainly can't have divergent
Yeah,
value.
exactly.
So if you're leading people, you want to know what drives them.
Mhm.
And it comes back to, take us back to our values. It will always come back to values. Now you can intuit what you think their values are, but why not just be intentional
Right.
about asking them?
Yes.
So the alignment's really important. And so what we end up doing, and this is what drove me, this is what refired me with Brain Trust. Lots of scientific discovery over the 50, 60 years that I've been around, and where guys like my dad didn't know exactly why building the family relationship, building the connections worked the way they did, but they just knew that doing certain things, demonstrating your values, living out your values will always draw the right people to you.
Yes.
It now that we're actually looking at the science of it, if we were to hook up to an fMRI, you see that neurons in areas of the brain that are firing when we're having a conversation. Let's bring it to a conversation level. You and I are having a great conversation, like the first one that we had, and we really connected. What you'll find when two people are connecting on that level is that as I'm talking to you, if I'm telling you my origin story, my Dancing Dentino story, and you're enjoying all of that, what's happening is in my brain, neurons and areas of the brain are firing as I tell the story. As you're picking up the story and as you're really seeing it in your mind and you're enjoying it, the exact same areas of your brain, the same neurons in your brain are firing. It's called mirror neurons, neuron mirroring.
Mhm. I tend to call it attunement.
Yeah,
It's
well,
a similar thing. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
We're basically vibing together here.
Yeah. As the Gen Z would say.
That's right. But you can see it. You can actually see it now. And so, and along with that, you've got all this blood chemistry. You've got the neurochemistry. You've got things like oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical. That's that chemical they studied with mothers and their newborns, and they realized that when a mother is handed a newborn, and they literally meet for the first time, that they will see the levels of oxytocin in both the baby and the mother skyrocket. And when that happens, the opposite neurochemistry, cortisol, which is that stress chemical, which is probably pretty high in a mother as she's giving birth.
I would say yes.
Yeah, they drop. So when your oxytocin levels go up, you're connecting, and your cortisol levels go down because the risk is diminishing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, pull that forward, and let's talk about just relationships in general. And let's talk about conversations with people. You can modulate that same neurochemistry in people with the way you connect and the way you communicate with them. And so that is where we go with our customers, our clientele at Brain Trust. We talk about this. We talk to them about communication and how connecting and communicating, whether you're doing it personally or professionally, before you ever try and transact anything. And transaction could be just, hey, talking to my son, I need you to take out the garbage day today. That's a transaction.
Yep.
If I want to get a better response out of my son than I will normally get when I say go take the garbage out, I need to connect with him first. Hey, Willie, how was your day? You had wrestling practice today. How did it go? What kind of stuff did you guys do? Coach teach you that new Granby roll? Do you guys work on? Connect with them somehow. And then, oh, by the way, it's garbage day. Could you take care of that for me? People are far more receptive to a request when you're connecting with them in the limbic part of their brain. That's the emotional empathic part of the brain, which is the part that you reach when you communicate through connection.
Yeah.
And it's the emotional part. So when you're speaking to someone, if you can reach them emotionally first, one of the reasons I started out with my Dancing Dentino story, it tells you a little bit about me, and it helps it helps relax me, first of all, but then it also helps us connect, because you know a little bit about, he's from a big family, a lot of connection there. We have the whole Italian thing going on. You know, it's the other joke, if you ever want to shut an Italian up, tie his hands together. That kind of stuff just helps drive the oxytocin level up, drive the cortisol, the stress down, and it allows you to reach the person's emotional empathic network.
Mm-hmm.
You think of the brain in two different networks. Tony Jacks, a researcher up in Cleveland, Case Western University up in Cleveland. He's done years and years of research, and he's broken the brain down into what he calls two basic networks. If you want to think of the brain, there was the triune brain, the left brain, the right brain, all that. Well, Tony Jacks has broken it down into two networks. Analytical network, which is where all your comparisons done. I'm going to go to the store and I'm looking for a bargain. I'm going to compare this price with that price, this sweater with that sweater. That's all happens in the analytical part of the brain. The emotional empathic part of the brain, though, is actually where all of our decisions are made. It's where our emotions come from. It's where our visualization comes from. And that's where, when you're talking to someone, you're trying to connect with them, you want to reach them there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the emotional empathic part of the brain is open to new ideas, open to connection.
Yeah. So when I was working a couple weeks ago, I was at a large quick serve food service company, and I was working inside with a team. And there's also this other area that play opens up a lot of that as well. So we were doing some play. We call them exercises, because they're adults, but we're playing. And then at the end of the day, one of the things that we did was have them identify their personal values, and then we put them all up on the board. And so what was amazing to me, every time I do this, I'm always like, oh, this is so powerful. Because then people started to see the connections that they had on the team. Yeah. So it wasn't so much there's this poster on the wall of the values of this service company, this food service company. It was like, oh, these are my values. Yeah. And here is how they are convergent rather than divergent. Mm-hmm. Here's how they connect. Even if they are not the same, they're complementary to the other people on my team. And one woman said at the end, she's like, I've never felt like I could share this openly, because she now felt connected because of this, exactly the neurochemistry that you were talking about. Her stress levels were down, oxytocin, that trust hormone came out based on us connecting over values. Now, talking with the leader a couple of weeks later, they've already started seeing different work product. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about values are more than just inspiration, there's this neurochemistry behind why leading through values is such a business goal, a business imperative to how we communicate with teams. So I think one thing that people often resist is that idea of connection in a meeting. So we're starting a meeting and they're like, oh, I don't want to show up for the connection part. I'm just going to come for business. What would you say to that resistant person who doesn't think that that's valuable time?
So I see that all the time, especially in guys my age, more than I care to admit. But you've heard the old saying, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Teddy Roosevelt coined that. Well, Zig Ziglar tagged on to the end of that the two words, about them. Mm-hmm. People need to know not just that you care, but specifically that you care about them. How do you show someone you care about them? You connect with them. How do you do that? Well, we look at it this way. There are two types of trust in the workspace, whether you're talking subordinate, leader subordinate, or whether you're talking peers. Two types of trust. There's personal trust. Do I trust you? And there's professional credibility or professional trust. Do I trust you really know what you're talking about? The professional credibility side, obviously, that's demonstrated by your skill and your ability to do the job and all. Yeah, it's kind of your pedigree. Mm-hmm. But the personal side of it is really, it comes down to a couple of things. It comes down to being truthful, being honest, showing humility, and some vulnerability. That's the one that gets everybody. When I go in and I'm training people, they're like, yeah, trust. I get that. Truth. I want to be truthful, want to be honest, be a little humble. I can do humility. I can fake. Yeah. But vulnerability, people do not want to. I was training this past week a customer at a high-tech company. And I had a person say to me, I don't bring that personal stuff into the workforce. That's fine, but I've got these values, and these are the values but I don't talk about any of that. I don't think it's appropriate. Well, they're in a particular industry that relates with people on a regular basis and really have to connect with people. There was a person in the room that had 35 years of experience in that particular sector as a customer, who is now coming in as one of their in-house workforce. And she said, listen, I worked in that industry. I worked in that sector for 35 years. And the people that came in and showed a little vulnerability, a little connection, a little personal story, a little bit about, what made them tick. Those were the ones that I would take the appointments with. The other ones I ran away from because I knew they were just coming in to sell me their thing.
We feel the transaction.
You do, absolutely.
We resist it with that analytical brain because we don't want to get sold. I don't want to get manipulated. We resist it. And
nobody wants to be sold anything, but people do love to buy things.
They do. We do.
When you have something that I need, great, fantastic. But let's talk about it. Let's connect first. It's all about that connection. So the way we have found that works best, and I demonstrated a little bit in my personal connection, that the Dancing Dentino story. We will come to our clients with a list of values. We do a values exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So we take them through the values exercise. And the way I do it is we give them 100 values on a piece of paper. Nothing magical about them. Look through this list of values, circle the top 20, then put it aside, come back to it a couple days later. Now go break that down to 10, put it away, come back to it a little later. Now I want you to break it down. Give me your top 5, but I want you to rank it 1 to 5, most important to least important. Then what we do, because we don't just get our values out of thin air. Oop, I like that one. I'll take that one. Oh, no, that one over here is better. We get them from someplace. We see people model them.
Mm-hmm.
I saw my dad model family, service, dedication. Those stuck with me. And that's why I do what I do, because I saw the benefit that he gave to people through the work that he did, and the benefit that he got from it. It's not, Zig would say, it's not what we get by helping others, it's what we become.
Yeah.
The process of helping others. And that's what I saw from my dad. So those stuck with me. So the second thing that we do is we have them take those values and go, okay, where did you see that value demonstrated to you? And we ask them to look back at 3 different stages of their life, 18 to 24, 25 to 36, and 37 on. Who and where did you see that value demonstrated? And how did that inform you? How did that make you want to be, to demonstrate or to live out that value as well? We call that their sages and stages.
Yeah.
So we go through the sages and stages routine. And then once they've done that, we help them craft a story about their values and the person that they saw modeling those values, why it was important to them. We call it the my why story, but it's a misnomer because it's not really my story. It's a story about the sage demonstrating the value that I've taken to be such an integral part of me, and why with that value, I think I can help you, or I can impart to you the things that you'll need to either grow in the company, to stay with the company, to excel in the company. I'm going to try and impact you in a way to improve your performance, whether that's internally or externally to the company, whether that's personally or professionally.
It's such a great process to go through and to end with the story.
Yeah.
Because that's what starts to integrate it into you. It's not, as I said earlier, it's not just now a word on the wall.
Right.
I always help people craft a story and a statement. Like, what does this word mean to you? So like my 5 business values are valor, flourishing, connection, curiosity, and joy. I had to think about what's my last one. Is joy. And I have definitions for those that I can rattle off and a story, because it's now deeply integrated.
Yeah.
And it makes all the decision making better. It makes the alignment so much easier. Like you said, we all have them. Let's be explicit about it. Brene says clear is kind.
Yeah.
And that clarity is so powerful. And oh my gosh, I just looked at the time. Okay, so we need to wrap up our fantastic conversation. Maybe you'll have to come back for a part 2. I know that I love doing this work with clients and walking them through this process. So do you as well. How can we continue this conversation with you? How can the people connect with you? Tell us where to find you.
Yeah, well, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Matt Dentino on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook at Matt Dentino. Brain Trust, we're out there also on LinkedIn and on Facebook. It's Brain Trust Growth, and our website is braintrustgrowth.com. I would love to continue that conversation, get more into storytelling, because that's the thing. We human beings are story animals.
Yes,
we
we
love stories. And if you want to really connect with someone, you connect with them through stories, and that will take you further in a relationship, whether it's personally or professionally, than almost anything else you could do.
Yes. Oh, I just want to keep talking.
I know.
You have to come back. That's the only thing. We'll have you back sometime in the new year. Next week, we have Erin Barr coming. She is an HR specialist, and we're going to talk a lot about how you lead and when do I use HR? She's going to help us with some really tactical pieces around that. I would love for you to connect with me at jenwhitmer.com. You can find all kinds of great resources about my speaking and other opportunities for you there. Matt, thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate it.
My pleasure. It was a joy. Thanks, Jen.
Bye, everybody. So let me put my coach hat on for just a sec. Don't just leave this here. Take a moment. What did you learn? What's your next tiny action step? Share this episode with someone and tell them. Connect with us to keep this conversation going. As always, I'm Jen Whitmer. Thank you for listening to Joyosity. I don't take for granted that your earballs have a lot of information coming at you. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe. It really helps more people join us in creating positive culture with complex people. So work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. Can't wait for you to join us next week.